Good evening, chefs. Today I have for you a recipe for the worst possible food photos. Step 1, buy a fancy camera. Real photographers use real cameras, and that's what you need, right? There will be a ton of new settings and dials and knobs that you can't define, much less properly set, so don't worry about those yet. Just buy something high-end and just start snapping. 2, turn some lights on in your house and make sure the color temperatures are all different. Maybe you start with overhead ceiling lights set to a bluish 6000K task lighting hue so that the lamps nearby at eye level can give off a warm, contrasting orange glow. Use them all. When I get cool and warm light involved at the same time, my camera can only white balance according to one of those light sources, so half the image is either going to be too blue or too orange. Step 3, make sure the brightest light is behind your subject. I'm outside in a shaded location. That should make for nice, even light, right? Not if I take the pic head on so the sunlight shines behind the food. When the brightest light source is behind the subject, my camera can only expose the background or the foreground properly. So half my image is either gonna look too dark or blown out. 4, once you decide you've snapped the right pic, open up some editing software and just start adjusting the colors. Most of the time you can choose from several pre-made filters, but you should still make adjustments on top of that. This is what Hollywood big shots would call color grading. This last note isn't really much of a step, but more of a rule that you need to keep in the back of your mind throughout the process. When it comes to food photography, make sure that you prioritize the photo itself. You're sitting down to a nourishing meal, but for a truly awful food photo, you want the final product to remind you of a bad time. The time that you made all of your friends do 12 boomerang-style pics toasting their bottomless mimosas. The time that your dessert melted because you had to get one more shot 50 more times. If you follow all these rules and guidelines and suggestions, you'll be left with a photo that not only looks bad, but feels bad. You'll be all but guaranteed to get a record low number of likes, and you might not even get invited out for meals with your friends ever again. What is the process then for someone who wishes to travel a third path, not towards awful food photos and not towards the professional route, but rather towards reasonably attractive casual pics? After all, real pros use studio lights, high-end equipment, and props, plus a lifetime of professional tricks to make food look flawless. I do not wish to discount the incredible work that professional food photographers do. But for regular everyday smartphone photos of a meal that you're proud to show off on social media, you only need to keep a couple things in mind. 1, use a big main light source. When I say big, think of it from the POV of the food itself. Yes, the sun is the biggest light source that we've got, but it's so far away from the perspective of this dish, the sun is but a tiny bright dot in the sky. Compare that to the effects of bringing this small light all the way up to the dish. From the perspective of my own body, it's a small light, but from the perspective of a plate of food with a light all up in its face, it's the biggest thing in the room. The same concept applies to what is likely the biggest light source in your house, a window. You don't need to buy an enormous expensive light source if your window can act like a 6-foot wide light for free. You just have to hope that the daylight cooperates. That's not always possible, which is why sometimes you have to find your biggest lamp with a nice soft lampshade for nice light diffusion. 2, pick an angle that lets your great big light source illuminate the front or maybe the side of the food. A good default choice is to go either overhead and look down at the food or directly head on. Just don't let the brightest light source be behind the subject. Modern phone cameras are incredible. If you have a nice soft light and an appropriate angle, the photo is probably gonna look great. The only thing that could ruin your shot is bad plating, but that topic's already been covered on this channel, so you should know how to do it already. If after the photo's been captured, you must make edits, keep them simple. Set the white balance so the white stuff looks white, not blue or yellow. Maybe adjust the contrast and maybe bump up the saturation so it looks more vibrant. Normal people are surprisingly adept at noticing irregularities in the color of foods that they already know and love. Unlike portraiture, food photography usually aims to be color accurate, not particularly stylized or cinematic. If these tips sound anticlimactic, it's because they are. Outside of lighting and framing, there isn't some third secret thing preventing anyone from taking a good photo. And the best part, you still have room to go from good to great with practice. You eat 3 meals a day. That presents a ton of opportunities to get better over time. You could decide one week to use all 21 of those meals as an excuse to go experiment with props or set dressing. This Barkley linen napkin softens up a frame full of hard surfaces. Ooh, that's nice. If I put a glass of water here, it refracts the light in a cool way. If I put ice in the water, it becomes frosty and evocative. Maybe get some action going by poking something with a fork or cutting it with a knife. So dynamic. There may come a time where your whole feed starts to look samey, so you start collecting a mismatched cupboard full of handmade ceramics so each photo contains a place setting that looks a little bit different from the last one. There may come a time where you unshackle yourself from soft, even lighting and go for a hard light source that casts long directional shadows like the ones that you'd see in 2018 era Bon Appetit photos that became so trendy. Some foliage here add texture and intrigue, and suddenly it doesn't even look like a meal that you had at home. It looks like dinner al fresco that you ate on a patio right as the sun started setting and the shadows started to get longer. The point I'm trying to make is that you don't have to make it all the way to this stage all at once. There's a lot of good to be done in the middle ground with just a simple light source and a phone for a camera. Of course, some foods are naturally unphotogenic, if that's a word. This is just a pile of golden brown sticks. Once you start adding lemon wedges and minced parsley for color, you're officially wading out of food photography and into food styling. And even though the two often go hand in hand, I got into making relatively short videos so I could leave it there and be done talking by now. Bye-bye. Helix has paid to be mentioned at the end of this video. I take sleep, if I'm being honest, maybe a little bit too seriously. Ask my wife, my family, or my Discord server. I track my stats and share my sleep scores with everybody that I know. I use a sleep mask, a white noise machine, no caffeine after 12, cooling sheets. I do whatever I can to sleep as deeply as I can. The most recent alteration is this. I just switched my mattress to the Helix Midnight Luxe with the Glaciotech's cooling cover so that I can add one more chilling element to my sleep setup. The current high temp at the time of recording here in Phoenix, Arizona is 116. You get a 100-night sleep trial to decide as to whether or not you like it, and then they make returns and exchanges nice and easy for you. Go to helixsleep.com/internetshaquille as soon as you see this, because there is a legitimately good sale happening for Labor Day. This isn't one of those ad reads where I say, ooh, my exclusive link gets you an exclusive discount, and it's just a regular old standard price. Helix is doing a 27% off sale site-wide. This is a real sale with a meaningful discount on a nice, comfy mattress. I typed the link out in the description if you want to tap it or click it without typing it all out. That's helixsleep.com/internetshaquille. Thank you.